Okay, friends. Hi. Welcome back to Kind of a Bitch. Team, I had kind of a bitchy moment, okay? And I know that on this podcast my hope is always to share tips, tactics, stories, my own experiences, kind of about how to approach life from this kind bitch mentality. I always want to approach my life, my work, my friends with the most kindness that I possibly can. But I also want to save some space for potentially being called a bitch because that means that I am most likely holding my boundaries. I am keeping like my own behavior and potentially others who interact with me at a certain standard. I'm not allowing people to walk all over me. And oftentimes, as we all know, when you do that, people will often call you a bitch. So that is where we're coming from. But I definitely had a little bit of a bitchy moment recently, and I'm going to share it with you today. Have you ever had a moment with someone that pushed every button you had? Perhaps it made you question why you were being patient. Maybe it almost, in my case, it did. Maybe it almost made you lose your cool. That is what I'm talking about. I was dealing with an agent in a negotiation, and he was getting on my nerves. And I learned a lot about boundaries, about emotional control, and what it meant for me to stop letting someone steal my energy. Today, I'm going to unpack that moment, some of the lessons that it taught me, and perhaps how you can use some of those tools, some of those maybe don't let them moments and situations in your own life. So let's dive in, shall we? Okay, here is what actually happened. I'm going to talk you through it step by step because I think it's perhaps you will be frustrated the same way that I was. Maybe you'll laugh a little bit. Perhaps you will be infuriated the way that I was. Trust me, I think this is worth hearing because at the end, I think there's a really clear lesson about how to protect your peace and how to keep your power. So let me talk you through it. I am working with a set of clients who I love, who I adore, who, in fact, I would like to be their friends post transaction. Okay. Now, we have submitted on a couple of properties, and realistically, we don't have quite the budget that a lot of sellers are asking for. Now, I'm not going to make this a whole real estate podcast, but for a little bit of background so you understand what's going on, the market is what we like to call balanced right now. That means that there are a lot of opportunities for buyers, but there's also still great opportunities for sellers. The biggest difference is that a lot of sellers want prices that are really only realistic for like 2022, 2021 arena. You know what I'm saying? So they have unrealistic expectations for the amount of money they can get for their home. And then we do have some buyers who want 2008 prices, which is also unrealistic. So we are struggling a little bit in the expectation department. Now, my clients and I went and toured a home. It is in a fantastic area. It's a great area. I think it could be a really fantastic home if someone put a lot of work into it. When we toured it, I actually told my clients, I don't think this is a good idea. I don't think it's a good idea. I look at this and I go, this is a money pit. This will be a money pit. But after having some folks visit, they have some friends who deal with more historic homes. They have some friends who are in the contracting business. They came by, they looked at stuff, and we looked at the inspection report that was provided, and we just kind of ballparked that they were going to have a lot of work to do. And you know what, at the end of the day, I have to let my clients make decisions for themselves. I don't get to influence that after a certain point. I said my piece, but at the end of the day, they wanted this house. They thought they could do something fantastic with it. So I said, okay, well, in that case, I am going to do my darndest to help you win it. So we wrote up our offer. Now, this home has been on the market for a while, a long while, actually. And the reason it's on the market for a while is because the stuff that comes up in the inspection report are pretty hefty fixes. We're talking foundation issues, we're talking sewer problems, we are talking really outdated systems, we're talking bathrooms that don't count as bathrooms. I mean, this was a wild home, I'll tell you. So we wrote our offer. It was low. It is closer to the price point that the home should be. It was not completely unrealistic, but it was definitely on the low end of realistic. Okay. Now, when I sent it over to the agent, usually when I have a client who is coming in a little bit aggressively, I always want to call the agent to let them know, hey, I know where you guys are located. I like where you're priced. This is not out of disrespect. We want to start the conversation, right? My clients are truly serious. They love this home. I really try and open up those lines of communication because I want to set an example for the type of agent that they will get to interact with if they choose my client. Okay. And we start that discussion. The agent says something to me along the lines of, I think my client is going to have to learn that his home is maybe not worth what he thought it was. And he is right. His client has some coming back to reality that needs to happen. So we submit this offer with a lot of time. It's probably a 36-hour turnaround. By the middle of the day, the next day, I check back in and I'm like, hey, do you have any feedback for us? And he tells me that there's something going on with his client. He hasn't heard back from him. So, he's going to try and get him. 10 minutes before our offer expires, it's now almost 9 p.m., almost 36 hours later. I have followed up multiple times. He tells me that his client has some dental work that needs to happen because, I don't know, there's some type of an emergency dental situation. And I'm like, oh no, that sucks. I'm so sorry. Okay, well, we are here. We would love to talk to you when you have a second. This game goes on for 2 more days. Hey, like he's getting dental surgery. Now he's on pain medication, so he doesn't really want to talk. And listen, I'm not here to say I think that they were fibbing. I don't think they were, but I do think there was probably room for a little bit of a conversation to happen somewhere in those 3 days. But you know what? To each their own. By the end of the third day, I check back in. Hey, are we going to hear anything from you? Because if not, my clients and I we're going to move along. You know what I'm saying? You haven't gotten any offers in 2 months. Obviously, you're overpriced. I didn't say any of this, but obviously, we would really like to engage. We're hopeful that you will as well. He responds to me with, and again, I will say I stayed respectful, I stayed very patient, and I stayed professional for all 3 of those days. And I did not have to. Okay. So at the end of that time, he sends me what I would like to call a fuck you counter. Okay, this is a counter that is not a real counter offer. Like it is a real counter offer, but it does not communicate that they actually want to engage. It's not serious. It says, it kind of says we're going to give you something. But in my opinion, it is designed to frustrate, to test patience, and to also flex ego. That's how it feels to me from this moment. Now, keep in mind, I have just waited. I had followed up. I had hunted this person down, constantly checking in for 3 days after being the only people to submit an offer for a while. And I get this, FU counter. And I was so frustrated because not only do I have my clients checking up on me, there's so much happening during this time, right? I might have lost my cool a little bit, just a little bit. And I responded, I texted, because this is all via text, because this person wouldn't answer the phone. This person would only text me, which is also so frustrating. What is time? I responded, you have got to be kidding me. I'm sorry. I couldn't help it. I texted back, you have got to be kidding me. It wasn't professional, but it was honest and it was human. He immediately responds to me with a long, condescending text thread, long, and is going on and on and on about this house, truly just these crazy, unrealistic expectations, and says something along the lines of, well, if we thought it was worth $750, we would have priced it there. I don't know where he's pulling that out of because we didn't offer at $750. So I'm kind of like, what does this have to do with our conversation? So I had responded and just said, I'm confused why you're throwing out $750. We didn't offer at $750. And he responds, $750 is hyperbole. Seriously? Who says that in a professional negotiation? So as I'm sitting here getting more and more frustrated, I can feel the buildup. I can feel this anger rising up in my chest after, again, treating this other agent with respect, with patience, with compassion for whatever his client is going through. I'm looking at this long message where he's basically telling me how to do my job. And I realized this isn't about the deal or the house. This was ego. This was posturing. And this was an attempt to spin me in circles. So instead of continuing to respond after I sent my "Are you kidding me?" text, I stopped engaging. I just left him on red. I took my energy back and I peaced out. Now, I know if you were in the industry, you might be thinking there was more to be done here, but I can tell you from experience that there are certain people in the world who just want to win. I've had it in other agents, I've seen it in clients, I've even seen the want in myself to keep fighting just to have the last word. And while I know that there is room for that to not be the truth. The feeling that it was bringing up in me, I could tell we were not going to get anywhere with this. So I knew that by removing my energy and letting them continue to sit on the market, which now, almost a month later, they still are, I would let time continue to prove my point. It doesn't need to be me, right? A lion doesn't have to roar to tell you it's a lion. So I want to talk to you first about spotting a fuck you counter. You might see these in your real life. The definition, like I said, of a fuck you counter is a counter or a response that signals they're not serious about engaging with you. The effects of a counter like this or of a response like this is simply to waste time, to frustrate, and to keep you chasing. It keeps you chasing. And that's the part, the psychology of this all that was really infuriating because I had been chasing for almost 4 days at this point. Okay. So the signs of an FU counter: it does not move the conversation forward. It is a response, but it doesn't move the conversation forward. It is unrealistic, it is dismissive, or it is passive aggressive. And then lastly, it feels more like a wall than a bridge. Okay. It feels more like a wall than a bridge. It can show up in other places beyond real estate. So if you're listening and you are not in the industry, you can see it in business, right? As a boss who gives impossible goals or who gives really vague feedback. Again, not a solution, right? Just kind of throws out feedback that isn't particularly helpful. You can see it there. You could see it in relationships, like when someone says, "Fine, do whatever you want," instead of communicating, right? It is kind of seeming like a response, but it doesn't actually move the relationship, the connection, the conversation forward. The biggest point here is you need to recognize that it gives you an opportunity, an FU counter, an FU response. It gives you an opportunity to step back and choose how to respond. So the question I have to ask myself, and that I would encourage you to ask yourself in these moments when you get one of those responses, is, am I actually negotiating here? Or am I feeding someone else's ego? Am I playing somebody else's ego game? Now, let's talk a little bit about emotional self-management, okay? Not my best moment, I admit. And we all react sometimes, okay? It is human. But there is a moment, and there was a moment during that week where I just started going, wow, what if I responded to people the way they respond to me? Because I'd had a conversation with my therapist that week, and she had noticed that I do a lot of masking. And I said, Marilyn, my queen, you're right. I do. But it's part of my job. I have to swallow my own frustration, my own ego, my own want to win, my own want to be right in order to represent my clients the best way that I can. Okay. And so in this moment, after multiple days of all this follow up, and there were other things happening with other clients, and I had I had a couple of difficult human beings in my life that week. And in that moment, I thought to myself, at this point, what's it going to hurt? You know what I'm saying? It is a human necessary. And I said to myself, what if I just start showing up the way that other people show up to me? And so I'm going to respond this way. And again, looking back on it, a little bit of a ballsy move, but it is what it is. It was human. So the framework that I'm giving myself to when I'm feeling that that need for some emotional regulation is react, notice, and re-choose. Okay, so the react, it's the gut level response. Okay, and you might not actually follow through on the reaction, but noticing the reaction. I did know what I was typing. This wasn't something that fell out of my mouth. I texted it. So my gut level response was, "You have got to be kidding me." And instead of holding it back, I decided to press send. And I'm still okay with it because honestly, I think he deserved it. But if I hadn't, if this was, I do this all the time where I'm having to notice my reaction and say, I'm reacting to someone else's thing. I have to kind of, you know, I have to work through what is really coming up. And that is where notice comes in. React. So be aware of whatever that reaction is. Notice what is actually happening. Is it your ego that's coming into play? Is it the feeling of being manipulated? Is it the feeling of being drawn into someone else's nonsense? I don't know. You have to notice that. And then you have to re-choose. So instead of giving in to that reaction, maybe the re-choosing, or maybe the choosing is that you do react, I don't know. But if you want to re-choose, decide how to show up next. Okay, so re-choose. Now I did react. I sent "you got to be kidding me." I had to notice what was going on. It was ego, it was manipulation. Once I saw his additional text messages, this need to win, and I had to re-choose how to continue this engagement. And you have to decide how to show up next. And in this particular situation, I had to decide, do I want to disengage? Do I want to continue to discuss with him? Do I want to continue sending back my responses? Do I want to reset? Or do I want to protect my energy? I don't know. There's a lot of different options here. The skill is not perfectionism at this. Okay. Like I said, I maybe did not respond in the most professional way ever, but I think it's being aware of those moments that pull us to respond in the ways that the impulse is initially there. And then what did I do? I immediately had to call a friend. I had to talk to my husband. I had to talk to somebody else because venting, laughing, stepping away from the situation, these are all tools that can help you process the emotions without staying stuck in the emotion. Because let me tell you what, I was mad. I was mad. And it took everything in me not to start responding because this guy was not right, you guys. Let me just say, from my own personal opinion, this guy was not right. But this this was a futile effort. Okay. This was a futile effort. I was not going to win with this person because it wasn't really about the house or the negotiation. So I needed to let it go. I needed to move away from that energy. And again, this is where your friends come in. This is where turning to humor, this is where like short mental breaks to go on a run, a walk, whatever can help you regulate in those emotional moments. So as I reflect on this situation, because of course, as I stepped away, I thought to myself, oh my gosh, did I just ruin something that could have been good? Did I do something wrong? Did I, I kind of had my own small crisis where I was really second guessing my own reaction. I had to notice where I was setting my own boundaries, where I was kind of taking my power back. So to me, leaving him on red, right? Not responding anymore to what he was sending me because I was just getting these long text messages. This was a conscious boundary. It protected my energy. And that's really it. It protected my energy because I was going to say that continuing to respond, would be like continuing the fight, would be punishing in a way. But I almost think that not getting any attention for that type of response is a worse punishment. So to me, simply removing my access was what I needed to do. The boundary, it's not being mean, right? It's about being effective. It's about saying like I'm no longer accepting this type of interaction because I can tell that after 3 days of keeping me chasing you, that is what we're after here. We're not actually after finding a mutual solution. And the reason these boundaries matter is because it avoids wasting time defending, right? I would have continued to waste time spinning and defending our offer, defending our reasoning. And again, to what end? I don't think we were going to come to a solution because I think that was already decided. And so spotting when the other side is not actually interested in a solution. Yes, he might have sent this counter, but like I said, it was a counter that clearly indicated they were not interested in engaging with us. So being able to catch that, knowing when it's like, this is not going to be something that comes to a conclusion that will be mutually beneficial at all. Okay. And it stops that spiral of frustration, which is certainly what I was in. So if you are in a situation like I was, if I'm kind of rewinding it here and going, what could I have said instead that was maybe a little bit more on the professional side? I'm still happy with what I did, you guys. I'm not upset about it because I really needed to stand my ground in that moment. I just needed not to mask for a minute. I wanted to be like, are you effing kidding me right now? I wanted to finally say what was in my mind and I did it. So I'm not upset about it, but it's not appropriate in all situations, team. So a couple of alternative solutions. I love to say, thank you for clarifying. We'll need to move forward on our end, period. Okay. Just like that's it. It's not opening up to more conversation. It's just saying, great, we're done. Or saying something along the lines of, I hear your position. At this point, though, it doesn't seem like we're aligned, right? Done, period. The biggest takeaway here is learning to set that boundary, whether it is verbal like that, or whether it is truly just removing your access. It gives the control back to you, which is intensely important. I mentioned before, this is a universal experience. You've had this experience, whether you know it or not, whether you're in the industry or not. This is the boss that moves the goalpost. Okay. This is the friend who dismisses or who guilt trips or is passive aggressive. This is the family member who thrives on drama, who says things to get a reaction, right? The universal truth here is that we cannot control their behavior, but we can control our energy, our attention, and our response. My question to myself in moments like this, especially when I can feel myself wanting to pick up the phone and get the last word, is I have to go, what is the cost of letting this person occupy my head right now? What's the cost of letting this person occupy more time, more space, more brain space right now? Is it peace? Is it time doing things that I want to do or that I can do or that I could be putting towards moving these clients towards a different home? Is it my confidence, right? Is it something that is going to shake my own confidence? So this is kind of where I had to remind myself sort of the let them theory, right? If that's how they're going to be, let them do that, but also let me remove my access. What I will say though, is I kind of thought to myself when I sent the initial text, the are you got to be kidding me message was don't let them. Like call it out. Note, are you joking me right now, dude? Saying something that just kind of shakes it up a little bit, but I do admit, I know it's not the most professional. It just is what it is, team. So, all I'm going to say to you, do not let them steal your calm. Don't let them drag you into their chaos. And you need to be the one who decides how you show up. If that means sending a snarky text here and there, I love that for you. So, here is what I will leave you with. People are going to be difficult, team. They're going to drag their feet. They're going to throw you into their nonsense. They are going to bait you into snapping. That is the part you can't control, okay? But what you can control is whether you let them live rent-free in your head. For me, it took a few days of chasing before I realized I don't need to play his game. Okay. Like I can shut it down. I can reset and I can move on. So if you have had you gotta be kidding me moment lately, remember you're totally not alone. And whether or not you actually said that, like I did, or whether you just thought it, you're not alone. Take back your energy, set your boundary. Don't let anyone else's ridiculousness stick in your head. Don't be afraid of being called a bitch. Okay. Wow. I feel better getting it off my chest. Thanks for being here with me, team. Thank you for hanging out with me as always. If this episode or if this story hit home, please, as always, share it with a friend, share it with someone who you think might resonate, because we've all got people like this in our lives, whether it's in your personal life, your business, or wherever. So, thank you, thank you, thank you, wherever and whenever you are listening. And I will talk to you next time. Bye.